Did you know 80% of minority entrepreneurs' businesses fail within the first 18 months, often due to systemic barriers like lack of access to funding, limited mentorship opportunities, and structural inequalities? However, these numbers don't tell the full story. By addressing these myths and understanding the facts, we can unlock real opportunities for success and resilience in our communities. Let's explore the truth behind the numbers and how we can collectively support Black and minority business owners. It's time to change the narrative. What inspired you to start your business, and what challenges have you faced along the way?
It wasn't actually a plan of mine to start a business. I had skin issues where I was seeing a dermatologist. And the dermatologist had to check my liver periodically before I get another prescription. What is that possibly doing to my liver? And I was just inspired to stop. I don't know why, just stop taking the medicine, and I did. And one day at church, literally sitting there, and this voice came to me and said, "Look at oils of the Bible." And I didn't know why, but I wrote it down, look at oils of the Bible, and I put it on my refrigerator. As I do with any notes that I put on my program, I put on the refrigerator, I look at it later. I looked at it later, and it opened my eyes to all of these herbs and oils that I'm like, whoa, what does that mean? And when I started looking at the meanings and the reasons for these oils, it pointed directly to ways that I can help my skin. And I was shocked, but I kept on going. I kept looking. And then I started making products. And when I used them and people noticed, that's where the business idea came from, because people wanted to have skin like mine. And I'm like, wow, because I didn't want my skin for so long. Wow. But that's how it came about. It was really inspired. And that's why my name of the business is Shalisa's Heavenly Inspired, because I think that's where it came from.
So what is the first product that you made that you start getting compliments on your skin, and who taught you how to make these products? Did you also just do research, or
Yes.
how did that come about?
The first product that I made was an ugly bar of soap. It was ugly and the color was horrible. And it wasn't shaped pretty or anything. It was just a bar of soap. But I used it because that's what my goal was and intent was, to use the soap. So that was my first product. And once I did the soap, I knew I had to have some kind of cream or moisturizer or something like that, because soap cleanses and dries your skin in a way, a healthy way. But that shea butter cream was the next thing I did. And that's what I sold the most, was that soap, after I made it look prettier, and the moisture cream or shea butter cream. And now it's all history, because I really did not go to anyone. I would look to find people to teach me how to make soap, but I just Google searched and YouTube searched and did it with recipes that I would find. It was 2017, 2018 when I actually found someone. Now, I started in 2013 doing this, but in 2017, I thought I needed to really sit up under someone who knew what they were doing in the cosmetic world or the beauty world and work with them. So I did that for a week. I went to Virginia and studied under a lady who made me feel confident in what I was doing, because I already was doing it. Okay. So I taught myself pretty good, I think, when I talked to her and worked with her. It was just like, now just be creative. Just be creative with it.
What are some challenges you have faced as a business owner trying to get your business off the ground?
Just that, trying to get it off the ground is a challenge, right? I would say money, but it wasn't, because I started very small. I started in my home, but it was finding people that could help me do more. Like, every part of the business is a job and can be a full-time job, especially when you're trying to grow. There's marketing, there's social media posting, there's actually producing the products, and then you have to do labels. You have to buy the materials to make the products, all of that. The whole business operation can be challenging and overwhelming trying to do it alone. So that would be my biggest challenge, is trying to work by myself and do all the things that's required of a business. I mean, you got to do books, you got to do inventory, you have to do everything. And so I think that hindered me from growing more, because I didn't feel comfortable. At the time, I was working another job, a full-time job. So I didn't feel comfortable bringing somebody in and paying the money that I needed for my expenses, me personally, to just put it into the business. So it just a slowing pace is the way I went at it. It kept back a lot of financial issues. I didn't spend the money on hiring someone. Secondly, there's no one to hire that knows all the things that you know. Finding the right person. And then when you find the right person, I think we even talked about that. You can't afford to pay the right person, right? So there's a lot involved. But I'm at a point now where I'm ready to do that. By the grace of God, just the going on faith, I'm going to, move forward with bringing somebody on.
As an entrepreneur, you listed all of those things, all those challenges, and people jump in, and a lot of us is doing everything. We're in all those hacks.
Yeah.
What do you think can make it easier for an entrepreneur to get off of the ground?
Without the money part, because that's an individual thing. Most people can't just tap into a resource like that. But I think us entrepreneurs coming together, building a pool of resources within each other to tap into. For instance, there's a lot that I have naturally because I'm a crafter. I'm gifted with just being able to do things. So you can tell me use this app to do social media. I can just do that. So I can teach you how to do something like that. I do Cricut. That's something on the side that I do. I can help you learn how to use a Cricut machine. Some people have equipment and don't know what to do with it, but that's their intent, but don't know where to go. It costs money. So I think that someone who does Cricut on a regular as an entrepreneur can come into our entrepreneurs group and offer their service to help someone else, not to compete against that person. So just having us supporting each other, I think is a big and a huge way that's cost effective, right? So that's what I'm trying to do as far as helping other entrepreneurs in the community. So I started the Entrepreneurs Chat so we can talk about things and work together to figure out ways to support each other.
In addition to the entrepreneur chat, you're also sharing your space to where other businesses can have a home.
So that was based on my experience of going out and doing markets. Prior to me having this storefront, I worked out of my home and people would come into my home to buy things. So since I've gotten this store, I thought, how good would that be to offer just some shelf space? I mean, people don't have to have a lot of product to sell, but just to have a place to set it up so people can walk in a door and see it. Because there's a lot of creative people in Athens. There are so many good talents. There's not just artists, not just people who do tumblers, but just things. There's somebody who makes oyster shells, wreaths. People buy things all year long. If you have art, you can put it on the wall. It's just pay a little fee and send your customers over. You can, and I want those people that bring products in here to sell to actually have a day where they do their own pop-up within the store. This is your day. Tell your people to come. Advertise for it. Do it just like you would do as if it were your own business. You can use that store like this. I do have someone renting from me now who has pretty much done that. She does an excellent job at selling her yarn and telling people to come here. And they do. And it's a wonderful thing to me.
What advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur? What advice would you give them as far as making that step to start their business?
If this is what you want to do as a business, if this is what you know is your calling, stay there. Stay there and keep working towards it. And if it's supposed to be, it will be. You'll find ways as you go. I watched a TV interview yesterday and the lady said the same thing. Don't let distractions enter. Stay there and keep moving. You learn as you go. Even if you went to school and got an education for business, you still have to learn the ropes and the ways. While you're doing it, nothing happens overnight. Got to be patient and just keep doing it.
What inspired you to start your own business and what challenges have you faced along the way?
What inspired me to start my cheesecake business? Number one, I really, really like cheesecake. But I think the overall inspiration was me going through things. It was a stress reliever. I'm a natural creative. I do music as well, but like the cheesecake was a way for me to start with a blank canvas and create something new. And once one person had it, it just kind of went from there. Struggles is just business in general, especially anybody understand food business. It's hard, you know. So it's been several setbacks. Trying to get into a kitchen that was consistent, customer base and growing, and funding. Man, funding, knowledge, a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of obstacles.
Okay, so who taught you how to make cheesecake? Who taught you how to cook? Because, the thing about these cheesecakes is like someone takes a bite and they want more. And then somebody else hears about it. And it's a big thing.
Yeah.
And so I would say since moving to Georgia and hearing about a cheesecake factory, this has been the most talked about cheesecake outside of the Cheesecake Factory.
I appreciate.
So who taught you, man? Who taught you?
I grew up around the older people. So my grandmother on my dad's side was the first person to put me in the kitchen. First thing I made was rice pudding. It was rice pudding. And I just kind of took a liking to it from there. And then I spent some time with my great grandmother, my mother's side, and she was the cook. That's where I got my sweet potato pie recipe. Don't tell nobody. But yeah, other than that, it was just me. Again, I really like cheesecake. It was just finding a recipe that I could build off of. And I mean, this recipe that we have in front of us now is 10 years in the making. So
As a business owner, how can it be easier for you to get started? What do you think that would have been helpful to like really get you off the ground?
information, right? We live in the age of the internet, right? But if you don't know what to look for, it's hard to get the information that you need to get started. So a lot of times, like I would say out of the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've been hustling 9 of the years. I just started understanding business last year. One of the most pivotal things for me, and I feel like it's important for any entrepreneur, is to find a mentor. Get somebody who's made the mistakes, who's dealt with the successes and the failures, so that you don't have to deal with the cost of the failures. People tend to not want to pay a mentor, but the price you pay for not having somebody that can tell you exactly what to do, where to go, it outweighs the price you would pay for a mentor. So that would be like, if I had to do it all over again, the first thing I would do is find a mentor, pay them to teach me what I need to know, and then use my ideas, my passion and everything to grow the business to, what you see today.
Okay, so outside of having a mentor, we have like the Athens Black Market where you do pop-ups. Talk about how some of those pop-up markets could possibly help to advance business, especially if like local governments gave us more opportunities and
Right.
spaces for these pop-up markets. How have pop-up markets benefited your business?
That's been the entire growth of the business, especially something like a niche pop-up market. So you talked about the Athens Black Market, right? If you don't have a name, right, and you are a Black owned business, you need to figure out how to get there ultimately, because that's how you're going to, especially if you have a product, right? Services might be a little different, but if you have a product, you want to get the product in front of people because people have to trust someone in order to make a purchase, right? And if no one ever heard about my cheesecakes, right? But I showed up at the Athens Black Market, I have a group of people there who don't know me, I don't know them, but they trust Athens Black Market, right? So now I have the potential to grow my audience based on an event that was already put in place. You didn't have to do any work. Only thing I have to do is pay the vendor fee, come out. You got to have pop-up shops. Literally, that's been from here to Columbus, Savannah, Albany, Georgia. I am known based off of a pop-up shop method.
So, what has been one of the most rewarding moments in your entrepreneurial journey? Because you've been doing this for, you said 10 or 13?
Closer to 12 years now.
12 years?
Yeah.
What has been one of those moments where where you said to yourself, I can do this. Like this can work for me.
The moment I got a mentor, it was that moment. And then from there, I would say within the first month of having a mentor, I got in the kitchen. I had been struggling, when I say years, like the business got shut down a couple times just because I didn't have a commercial space to produce in. And I didn't know how to get there without paying out $5,000 and $6,000 because that's what they're asking for a commercial production space. I didn't know how to get there. Trying to do the research and I can't find any answers. So the most rewarding thing for me was actually getting into a space where I know I have a long-term lease and I can continue to supply the public with the product that they want. That's been the most rewarding.
What is the favorite that people love to buy when it comes to your cheesecake?
All right.
What are the top 3?
All right. Okay. I'm glad you said 3 because the number 1 spot is occupied by 2 different cheesecakes. That's going to be the strawberry shortcake and the banana pudding cheesecake. Those are technically number 1. They're literally neck and neck. And so number 2 is going to be our red velvet cheesecake. It's one of the classic cheesecakes that you can combine cake and cheesecake with. So it's really popular. And then Biscoff, which is one of my favorite ones to make.
Okay, what Biscoff?
Biscoff.
Tell
Biscoff
me
is
Biscoff.
all right. So if you haven't flown Delta, that's how I discovered Biscoff. It's this. I think they're made in Belgium or somewhere, but they're these little cookies. I call them like adult graham crackers or adult Teddy Grahams. It is so good. They give you these 2-pack of cookies on Delta. I had a craving for them one day, and I found out that they make them in these. You see here, these big packs like this. They also have a cookie butter. And so I had to put it together. I had to see what it was like to put Biscoff and cheesecake together because I love them both. And so once I put it to the public, I realized I wasn't the only one that liked Biscoff like that.
What advice would you give to an aspiring Black entrepreneur or an entrepreneur in general who may feel discouraged at this moment and trying to figure it out?
It took me over 10 years to get here. That's literally all the encouragement you need. The things that you desire in life, you ought to desire them more than you want to see yourself fail. And that is the motivation that you need to continue. Every day is a slice of success towards the bigger picture of success that you're in. I didn't say it because I'm doing cheesecakes, but it is literally a slice of success towards the whole pie of success that you see. My uncle told me it was like one of those periods where it was slow. I was kind of giving up again. And he's like, you realize that on the days that you don't sell one slice, you're defeating yourself. Like go in, and even if you sell one slice, if you sell one product, one item, it's more than you giving up, not doing anything. And I've taken that. December was a really slow month for a lot of businesses, but I managed to hit my goal and exceed it, like by a large number. And that was just me being motivated to not give up again. People want to see you win. You just got to keep going. You got to keep going. And again, I hate to sound repetitive, but find a mentor. It's worth it.
What is your future plan? Because I know you're working on a food truck. Do you see yourself having a brick and mortar, or where do you see yourself a few years from now?
Right now, we're trying to avoid the brick and mortar, and the only reason is because of the overhead costs, right? I do want this to be an expansive brand, so something that's available across the states, right? I don't know how far out that takes me in my vision. I haven't really gotten there yet, but that food truck thing, that's something that I'm set on. We currently have a GoFundMe for raising funds for my own food truck, but I'm willing to do it through just good old hard labor. Like I'm in here typically 12 to 14 hours a day, sometimes a lot longer than that. But as far as other goals, it's just being able to provide opportunities for the people in my community. I want to see a lot of the youth who don't really have opportunities or don't really have anything to do. I want them to see that you can come from a place like Nellie B. That's where I'm from. Nellie B, Spring Valley. I was born on the east side. But you can come from a place like that and you don't have to succumb to the streets, gangs. You don't have to become a rapper. There are things that you can do that was already set inside your heart. If all you got to do is just see somebody do it, you can achieve them. And I want to be that example. That's my biggest goal, though, is just to be an example for that next generation that you can make it regardless of your situation.
Where can people find you? And the GoFundMe mentioned that as well.
All social media platforms, we are Noni's Cheesecake. So when you type in NONYS, it's going to be the first thing that pops up. You're going to see the little strawberry or either one of the slices of our cheesecakes. And on any of those platforms, once you tap on the links, it's going to have the website. Some of them have the DoorDash link, but it also has the GoFundMe. For everybody watching this interview, I want you to understand that there is a community out there behind you. Go look for that community, right? Once you find that community, pour into that community. And I guarantee you, the way that that community pours back into you, you won't be able to outdo them. You won't be able to. I promise you.
All right, so tell me a little bit about what made you decide to build food trucks, because that's a good story to begin with.
Yes. So I initially started my food truck in 2012 out of Orlando. First, it was selling food. Reason I got started with selling food is I used to DJ back in the day, which put me in the scene of throwing parties and people who were in that space, which at all of these events, there was somebody outside selling food. There'd always be a long line. Typically, if I was out there with my friends, I'd buy a slab of ribs. We'd break down the slab of ribs on the way home. One day I decided to go out. Nobody wanted to go out, so I went out on my own. The guy that we usually buy food from, I sat with him at 9 o'clock. When I sat with him in the first hour, there was 20 people that came and bought chicken plates. So $10 a piece, 20 people, that's $200. In the evening, it's usually about 60 to 80 people. So in my mind, I said, this guy's doing about $1,000 a day. I said, this is something that I could do. So I called my friends. I said, hey, I want to do this thing. It's a great idea. It's money that we could have to buy bottles, hang out in the club, because we all had jobs. Every one of them said no. So I called my mother, who was in the islands on vacation at the time, and I said, hey, I remember you said you wanted to do catering. Here's an opportunity. So it took me 30 minutes of convincing her. And when she said yes, the very next day I went out and bought a barbecue grill. I ordered a tent from online. And then 2 weeks later, we had our first event. So first event, I called some friends who were doing a party. We went on our first night, we made 180. Second night, we made 100. Third night, we made 80. Fourth night, we got chased away from the spot. That's when I realized there was a lot of ins and outs politics when it came to the food truck and being licensed. And you have to go through these steps. So we started going through the steps. About 2 months in, I reached out to DJ Slim, which is a big DJ in Orlando. He would do the networking conference. And then out the gate, gave me my first real shot. So they usually do like holiday parties. So they had a Halloween party. Came out for that. We did $500 that night. The very next night, or the same night, somebody said, hey, this is good food. We're having an event tomorrow. You should come out to that. So we went to that at the ballroom downtown. Used to be Club Paris. And we did $400 that night. So we made $1,000 for the weekend. After that, I said, this is something that I wanted to start taking seriously. And what was good is 3 months into it, we landed Firestone, which is one of the biggest clubs in Orlando. All of the old heads, the people who were doing this stuff, couldn't understand how somebody new and fresh got in there, but it's a work ethic.
So then it leads you to starting this business, seeing how you could build it up, making the money, buying the truck, and then what happens?
At that point in time, first start. So the first person in Athens that gave me the ability to build their food truck was Shatoya Brown.
The name sounds familiar. What kind of business she got?
She does catering. They do a lot of stuff around here, but festivals and events, and they go out and they do lunches. So Amazon and different places like those. So that was the first truck that allowed me to build their food truck out of here. Then after that, it was a business called Taza. Grayson, they're now in North Carolina. We built out their truck. After that, it kind of just was rolling. I would buy trucks out of the money that I was making in, and I would build them out and putting them online to see who was interested in purchasing.
How long does it take you to build one of these trucks?
So in general, it takes about 45 to 60 days, which is actually rather quick. Most companies will take about 3 months to build. Although we're a smaller business, we do have a formula that works, so we're able to move a lot quicker.
Okay. What advice would you give anybody out there that, you do mentor other
Correct.
people. And from my understanding, it's been very beneficial. So what is some advice that you would give others out here that maybe want to get into the food industry or just want to start as an entrepreneur or even do what you do?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is it starts with the idea. A lot of times, like I mentioned before, the vision came to me. Oftentimes, when we get the vision, we reach out to the people closest to us. Those people will either make or break your idea. So, like I said, my friends, they said, I don't want to do that. I don't think that's a good idea. They made it sound like it was terrible, but that was the changing point in my whole life. And so I think a lot of times when we get the vision, we need to hold on to that. If you feel like you got the vision and you feel passionate about it, the vision was yours. Everybody else isn't going to see it. So you need to act on that. A lot of times we take the creative energy or the creative burst that we get in that time to go ahead and plan. That's the perfect time to have an action. So when we sit down and like, oh, I'm going to write out how we're going to do this, then you wrote it out and that energy is gone now. 2-3 days later, you're like, well, I mean, I wrote this out, but I don't think that this is going to be good. But if in that moment we say we're going to do something, if you want to start a YouTube channel, start the channel that day. Open it up, apply, sign up. You know what I'm saying? If you want to sell food, post a plate that you made. You know what I'm saying? See if anybody wants to buy it. Whatever it is that you want to do, you start it. That's the first step. Once you start it, then from there you don't know what can happen, but at least you've done something. We'll sit back and watch people online or people out there doing what we want to do, and we'll say they're not even doing a good job. But we never even started to even know what it takes to even do it. And so I think that once we start, we then have an idea. The second thing I would say is as soon as you're able to, find somebody who's in your field who's doing what you do. It took me a very long time to understand that. Very, 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 very long time for me to understand that. So years of trial and error. And there is a thing, known as failing upwards. We could fail at something, but it just works. And so a lot of times we think we're doing it right, but in actuality, we are not doing it right at all. And then we wonder why one month is good and the other month isn't, or why one year did so well and then the other year doesn't do as good. And so it takes the time of you learning your processes, always going through further education with yourself. And like I said, if you can and are in a position to find a mentor or pay for a mentor who is in your space, who does what you do, who has gone through all of the problems so you don't have to go through them. The beauty of food truck building, which I learned very early, is people buy food trucks from wherever they know food trucks come from because it's such a niche. So ironically, I'm here in Athens and I have not built the majority of the food trucks in Athens, which to me is somewhat puzzling because when you're in such a small place, when somebody does something, everybody kind of knows. So I've always thought, why is it that I haven't built the majority of the trucks in town? And then what I had to realize is, oftentimes we have to check on our own selves. Am I doing everything? Instead of blaming other people first, I have to first look inward to see, what am I doing? Am I promoting properly? Am I going out and talking to people? Am I doing what it is that I need to do for people to know that I even exist? You see what I'm saying? And so within that, the beauty of my space, like I said, because I know that we can get stuff from outwards, I have a lot of clients who come from all over the US. So I can live here and work here and do everything here, but a lot of my business doesn't come from here. So this truck is going to Augusta. The other truck that we looked at is going to Fort Worth, Indiana. We've done stuff for people in Alabama, South Carolina. We've sent the truck to St. Louis, Missouri. We've done stuff for people in Denver. I also will travel to do work now that we have an audience online. So I'll do through my TikTok, I get a lot of people that call. So we went down to Destin earlier last year.
Oh, I love
2 or 3
Destin.
times to Destin, which was able to do work and business,
Oh, I love
or business and pleasure,
Right.
all in the same trip. Through that, I've gone to Destin and I've gone to other states to just do the work that I do, which helps grow the audience. And as well, it gives us a beta into learning what areas are actually looking for our type of services and how we can cater to that. If I'm in a space and something doesn't work, I'm not going to sit there and try to fight in that space. I'm just going to find the next place who wants it. There's somebody out here who wants my services. There's somebody out here who appreciates what I do. There's somebody out here who's willing to pay what I'm asking for what I do because I know what I'm doing and I provide a good product. So Because of that, I look outwards everywhere. So social media is one of the things that we use. Word of mouth referrals is another thing. Most of the business is word of mouth, but the social media does carry out further. There's people that I've met in other states that have called me because of some work that I did for somebody's food truck. I had a friend that went to Wisconsin and she went to a food truck. She was like, I need to get you in touch with my friend. And she put the number in his phone and my name popped up
Oh, wow.
because he bought a truck. The truck that he had, he bought from me.
So where can people find you?
You can find me online, social media. Food Truck Builders A to Z is the name of the business. We're on Google. We're actually in the process of doing a whole revamp. So redoing the website. I'm redoing the branding, how we are perceived. I'm redoing how we show up in the community, community engagement, partnering with other organizations, doing my fair share of giving back, to raise awareness into who we are and where we can grow. One of the things that I've seen, that I take and I hold on to, that I recently heard: be, do, have method. Be a little, do a little, have a little. Be a lot, do a lot, have a lot. They all work in hand. We want to have things, but we don't want to do the work. But in order to do the work, we need to know who we are and why we're doing the work. That's the be. So as long as we know who we want to be, it's going to show up in the work that we do, and then it's going to show up in the things that we have.
Who are you? What do you do? What do you want the people to know?
My name is Bernard Sims. My pen name is Bernard the Barber. I'm an author and activist in our community. I'm also a philanthropist through a nonprofit called Reach One Chess in our community, where we use chess to encourage our youth to make better decisions. I started as a barber in the community, and everything else that I do springs from that.
So can you share your journey as a Black entrepreneur and barber in a small town, state of Georgia? How did you start your business and get it up off the ground? And how long have you been doing it?
Well, I started my business basically out of necessity. Being in a rural area, there was like no barbershops around here, and I wanted my hair cut like Bobby Brown with the high right, low left, and there was no place for me to do it in town. And so it basically spurned my creativity out of necessity. I went to Sears and bought me a pair of those cheap clippers, and I came home and I messed my head up, and but I kept trying. So it started out with people seeing my hair like, oh God, who cut your hair? To, oh man, I like, who cut your hair? And then they wanted me to cut their hair. So because we're in a desert for basically services like that in our community, which is usually started by Black people in the haircare industry. That's usually our first encounter with Black businesses in that lane because we're used to working on each other's hair. And so I started my business like in 1990. I want to go back to when I started like in the 80s in my mom's basement. It started back then, but I officially moved to this location in 1996. And we've been here ever since. It's been a blessing, been challenging, but it's also been a blessing, and to be able to interact with the community.
What are some of the obstacles you had to overcome in order to have a sustainable business as a Black person?
Some of the challenges that we face as Blacks in general, but in business in particular, is what I wrote about in my book called Combative Economics. How we engage each other as far as when it comes to businesses. People, I can tell you how many people come in here in Cadillacs and they want they want a discount on a haircut or something. And I understand we are, economically challenged, but Black people in general, we spend I think the projection is $1.8 trillion a year in other aspects. But then when it comes to each other, we want to shortchange each other. And we can't really address the issue of wanting reparation for the work our ancestors did when we're unwilling to pay each other for the work we see each other doing every day. And so that's one of the challenges as being in a Black business, is establishing that respect for each other in our prospective lines of work and encouraging each other economically, which means if I go to Longhorns and I'm willing to tip them 18 to 20% without even thinking about it, then I go to the barbershop and because it's Bernard the barber, I want a discount. So that's not treating each other fair and equally. So we have to address that issue up front, have those conversations because we have power, but sometimes we just give away our power by the way we treat each other.
There's a turning point where you know, okay, this business is going to work. Like, okay, it's working. I'm able to pay my bills, and then I'm also able to pay other people. How did you make that happen? What was that turning point for you?
For me, it's because I'm a pretty basic guy. I'm not very frugal. And I'm blessed, well, for when I started out, I had, family that willing to help me and those kind of things. But when I knew it was going to work was because, again, we was in a area where there wasn't any competition at that time. And there was a need for it. And so I used to go to church and I would see, all the deacons and everybody in the church where I was like artists in New York looking at his art on trains going around. And I started to say, hey, I cut the deacon's hair. I cut the guys who's singing this hair. I even cut the preacher's hair. And I started looking at my work like billboards, just parading around town. And it became overwhelming because we was in Barrow County was a desert. There was no other barber in town. So we had people coming from Jackson County, some from Clark, Oconee, and coming here to meet at this small location right here in the big town, or small town of Statham, Georgia. So it was overwhelming for a portion of my business here. So I had to incorporate hiring other people. I love that aspect of it, is to hire other people. People don't look at entrepreneurs like businesses like this. We inspire other people, and we also encourage, mentor, and then they get to a certain level and they want to go off and start their own business. And I encourage that because I wanted to start my own business. It's a thing to where each one teach one is the philosophy in business. And so that's sort of like where I come from as far as like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur to inspire others to be entrepreneurs because I know that with some of our realities in our community with the school to prison pipeline, there's places that won't even look at people who look like us and give them an opportunity or a second chance at life. And I just appreciate a chance to be able to do that for somebody else because people did it for me.
What are some skill sets do you think that someone needs in order to have a successful business? Because you've been in business for like over 20 years now.
Some of the skill sets I think I've had to work on as far as being in business because I'm sort of a loner, like to be by myself, go somewhere and write. But I'm having to develop like more people skills and being able to interact and have conversations with people sometimes in our community. Sometimes there's some hard conversations that we need to have, especially in a public space like a barbershop. We always say it takes a village to raise a child, and in the barbershop, sometimes that means, well, we just gonna take little Billy and Ray Ray over there at the barbershop and drop them off, and then they ain't behaving at home, but I'm expecting Bernard to be able to manage cutting hair and manage Billy and Ray Ray, who trying to break out his window, and then Bernard is not supposed to say anything. And so it does take a village to raise a child, but it does help when those lessons start in the hut. And sometimes I had to have those conversations with parents. Little Billy and Ray Ray trying to break out my window. And sometimes what happens when I have those conversations is I'm in trouble and not Billy and Ray Ray for breaking out my window. And so we have to hold each other accountable and be able to say that in a nice, loving, and respectful way. So having to develop those people skills that maybe when I was growing up, when we were trying to break out somebody's window, we was in trouble. Our parents didn't play that. And so now we have to use our words and be able to say it in a nice way. And hopefully, people can receive it and hold each other accountable to do better if we expect our kids to be better.
What did you have to do in order to sustain your business for this long?
Well, the blessing for me is I owned the property and when I started out. So Therefore, I had, something I could use as collateral to get a loan. Because being honest, in the 90s, when I applied for the loan, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have this. I didn't even have a stream of revenue that I had been reporting, because I was cutting hair in my mom's basement for $5 a haircut. So I didn't really have, where I could show this amount of income was going to come in. I basically went to the bank with just collateral, which it was a blessing and benefit. Now, after being in business, I know that that's not the way it's supposed to go. But for me, that's how it worked initially for me to get started. Now we have to have a plan. We have to be able to show that we can pay back the loan or be able to bring in the resources to pay back the loan. I have to say I've been fortunate enough to where when I did start the business, because we was in such a desert where there wasn't any competition and there wasn't somebody providing the service I was providing, I was able to sustain and maintain my business for all these years and being frugal. When I would get a blessing or financial surplus, I didn't go out and buy a Cadillac with spinning rims on it. I would still walk to work or ride my bike. I mean, we used to say it was cheap, but now we call people like that frugal. Just being financially responsible and taking care of what needs to be taken care of first, and let the wants and needs wait, or maybe not be fulfilled at all if it's a want instead of a need.
How can the community or the government play a role in supporting entrepreneurs?
We need to have access to more capital, and there need to be more consideration in the fact that, some of us don't come from a realms of privilege. Like my experiences in now working on being in the nonprofit world and applying for grants through these foundations, and when we see they have diversity and equity programs and they get Black faces in these places, when we get those Black faces in those places, we can't shrink to the opportunity we have to make changes in our community. For instance, if I'm starting a chess program, which is trying to, activate the mind of our youth so that they can go on and make better decisions in life and not become dependent on programs to sustain them. My goal is to stop the school to prison pipeline and to develop a school to purpose pipeline and use chess as a tool to do that. And so when you talk like that, and I'm talking like that to the boards, and it's like, man, that sounds good, but then I get overlooked for grant or a loan. But then I see like other people in the community say, hey, we want to have a giveaway at Christmas time and feed hungry people, which is good. But that's just feeding a person once a year. And so I would like to see more input and more focus on developing programs into questioning why people are hungry in the first place anyway, instead of just feeding them one time at Christmas. I know we always used to say, you teach a man to fish, he eat for a lifetime. If you give a man a fish, he eat for a day. And so that's why I would like to see more focus on questioning why people are hungry in the first place and develop systems to keep them from being hungry all year.
What advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur that want to start their business? What is one tip that you think that you could give?
The one piece of advice I would give to anybody who's starting a business is it only takes one yes to overcome 1,000 no's. But it's trying to overcome those stereotypes. There's a world of no's and doors waiting to slam in our faces. It only takes one yes from the right space to overcome all those 1,000 no's. And we just have to go places where we are appreciated and not just tolerated. And that's why I'm so appreciative of Athens Market and Athens Anti-Discrimination, because I'm from rural America where the things I'm saying make a lot of sense in this space. But when I walk out of this building and go to the corner store right up the street, Billy Bob, that what I'm saying don't make sense to Billy Bob. So, and that's weighing on a man's mental health. Like, I know this is right, but why am I being treated like this is wrong? So that's why I'm so grateful for spaces like this to give voice to the voiceless and to help us to be able to recognize that there are spaces where we appreciate it and not just tolerate it.
Being an entrepreneur can be a difficult yet an inspiring journey, and I know that it's not for everyone. But if you desire to own your own business, I want to encourage you to never give up on your dreams. Never give up on your dreams, because through perseverance and commitment, you can turn your dreams into reality. And for everyone else that is watching this video wondering, what can I do? What can I do to help a Black or minority business owner shop Black? Spend your dollars with Black minority-owned business owners, and that includes women, because there's a lot of women out here that needs your support, and we fall under the minority umbrella. Did you know that? Yes, we do. Remember, it is time to change the narrative, and you can help us do that by supporting Black and minority business owners.